Welcome to the Diversity Pivot Podcast. I'm your host, Julie Kratz, and this season we will be unpacking real trends, hot topics in the workplace around allyship and inclusion. Our goal is that each week you leave with tangible tools, information, practical strategies that you can take back to allies at your organization. Let's dig in to this week's topic. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. All right, that's enough singing for me. But if you remember that classic rock song, Steelers Wheel wrote, I always think about middle managers inside organizations. And oftentimes they do. They feel stuck in the middle. I'm trying to please leadership and I'm trying to please my employees. And I'm here in the middle, and no one's listening to me. And we find this a lot. We've done focus groups, listening sessions, survey data, and it's that middle band that's really feeling the squeeze, especially right now. So the majority of folks, according to Catalyst latest research, feel overwhelmed. They feel overwhelmed and burnout. And specifically, when you ask men, if they're personally committed to interrupting sexist behavior when they see it in the workplace, only 31% feel confident to do so. But the majority, 86%, say they're personally committed. So just one fact, one example of how we want to do something, yet we don't know how to do it. And this is really the problem with allyship. The middle bands of the organization, of course, want to be inclusive. You ask a leader, it's very rare that they say they don't want to be inclusive. Yet they don't necessarily know how to do it. So they'll say, hey, Julie, how do I show my team I want to be more inclusive? How do I get more diverse talent on my team? How do I make sure my team feels safe challenging things and surfaces issues before they become really big issues? So most of the data shows about half of managers are from the dominant group. And these are groups that traditionally are overrepresented, certainly as you go from middle management up to VP, SVP, C-suite, etc. boards. We're making progress, but there's not a strong pipeline in those areas as well. And so you're being asked to kind of cultivate a pipeline, develop talent, junior talent, that is likely to be from different historically marginalized groups, different lived experiences from you. So this leads to a disconnect. I've had a different lived experience than you do. It's harder for us as humans to relate to somebody that grew up, in a different culture, spoke a different language, has a different religion, background. It's just more of a challenge, but we learn more from people that have different lived experiences from us. The human tendency to lean on people that we feel comfortable with. In fact, when you really distill interview data, the number one factor that increases someone's likelihood of being hired, is their ability to connect and want to hang out with them outside of work, which is not a great bearing on their performance. Somebody that's fun to hang out with, it's great that you have similar hobbies and interests. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're equipped to do the job that you've asked them to do. So here's another wrinkle with middle managers. There's this era of cancel culture, fearing, saying you're doing the wrong thing, which absolutely people need to be held accountable for bad behavior. But when we approach things with a zero-sum mentality, someone said this, you're canceled, you're done to me, it's really harmful to folks that might be somewhere in the middle that are like, oh, shoot, I don't want to do that. I'm afraid, so I'm not going to say anything at all. I interviewed Sandra Quince, who's the CEO of Paradigm for Parity, and she said, diversity is the next dirty word. What people don't get is the DEI is not a replacement strategy. The goal of DEI is actually for everyone to feel valued, which is, of course, specifically true for women and historically marginalized groups. But we have to focus on managers in the organization so they have the most impact on creating a place where not just women, but folks of all races and backgrounds can advance and be retained in leadership. Many managers are promoted because of their individual work performance. It's called the Peter Principle, but they continue to ascend in their careers because they need to be supportive and invest in their development. And these inclusive leadership skills are really important. Thinking about one of the ideas that we shared in my latest Forbes piece was that having a DEI index for each leader, leveraging tools that they already have, their engagement survey data, their representation data, their promotion data, their pay data, and think about what leaders are doing well and how could you look at different prototypes or different profiles that encourage those skill sets. And what we know to be highly correlated with leaders that get results and build inclusion on their teams is they tend to have a high trustworthiness environment. They tend to value transparency, saying what needs to be said, not just what people want to hear. Investing in the team, paying back and not just money and resources, but time. Invest back, pay it forward. You're likely to see dividends on that time you spend with somebody, troubleshooting, walking through a problem, coaching them, so the next time they don't need your help. And having those courageous conversations. And so this isn't a one-time unconscious bias training. That's ineffective. It's the only DEI metric that can cause more harm than good. Rather than have a separate skill, really wrap these around the lens of inclusive leadership and think about trustworthiness, transparency, how you invest in the team, what courageous conversations we're willing to have, what frameworks do we have for feedback, coaching, navigating, difficult conflict in the workplace. So think about your middle managers. What does support look like for them? What skills would you like to see these people leaders have more of? And build an intentional program, not just a one-time deep dive or one-time check the box training, but really an intentional set of skills that folds into their daily experience and helps them grow as leaders. Thank you for listening to the Diversity Pivot podcast. My hope is that you walked away with a tangible tool, insight, or information that you can share with other allies on the journey. If you liked this week's episode, please leave us a review. Your feedback means a tremendous amount to us. We'll be back next week with another hot topic.